There is something in the dark. You can't see it, but you can hear it. The small, dry scratch of claws on a storage basket, the whisper of a body moving through grain you spent weeks gathering, and the question that matters, the one your survival hangs on, isn't what is that? You already know what it is. The question is what you're going to do about it. Because for almost the entire human story, this was the fight. Every single day, surrounded and outnumbered by things that wanted your food, your blood, your body, and no shop to buy a solution from. Whatever you did about it, you had to invent yourself, out of clay and smoke and hard-won experience. Today you live inside a bubble so complete you've forgotten it's there. Sealed walls, poison under the sink, clean water from the tap. You have won this war so totally, you don't know it was ever fought. So let's go back to when it was still being fought, threat by threat. And look at how people fought back. Start with the rats. The moment humans stopped roaming and settled down to store food, they built the finest rodent restaurant in the world. Gather grain in one place, keep it there, and the rats and mice will find it. And they foul far more than they eat, ruining weeks of work with droppings and urine. The answer was to engineer the problem out. People lifted their food stores off the ground on posts out of easy reach and shaped special clay vessels built specifically to keep rodents from getting in. This isn't a guess, we've dug up those rodent-proof pots and we've found the burrows where determined rodents tried to tunnel in anyway. It was an arms race fought in grain and clay, and every raised granary you've ever seen is a descendant of it. Then reinforcements arrived that nobody had asked for. Wildcats crept into the first farming villages to hunt the mice in the grain, and instead of chasing them off, people let them stay. Nobody tamed the cat. The cat saw that humans had gathered all its favorite prey into one convenient place, and it moved in, domesticating itself to fight the same enemy. Every one of the 600 million house cats alive today descends from that ancient truce over a grain store. Humanity's answer to the rat problem was, essentially, to hire a predator that agreed to work for scraps. Their next great weapon was one they'd had all along: fire. We think of fire as warmth and cooking, but it was also one of the oldest weapons against bugs and sickness in existence, quietly doing several jobs at once. Start with the biting insects. The mosquitoes and midges that swarmed at dusk and, in the wrong places, carried fever in their bite. A shelter with a fire in it, or a smoldering pile set to throw off smoke, kept them back. A screen of wood smoke was the closest thing they had to insect repellent, and it genuinely worked, driving the swarms out of the sleeping space night after night. That same smoke did a second job on the way past. Drifting over racks of meat and fish, it dried the flesh and coated it in compounds that held rot at bay far longer than raw meat could ever last. A way of banking a good hunt against the lean days coming. But the most important thing fire did, nobody could see it all. The simple act of cooking, putting meat and roots to the flame, bringing questionable water to the boil, was killing the invisible things that lived in them. Heat destroys much of what lurks in raw flesh and dirty water, so a people who cooked their food and boiled their water were slaughtering their deadliest enemies wholesale, thousands of years before anyone knew those enemies existed. One fire. Repellent, preservative, and a sterilizer that no one understood. Solving 3 problems at once, 2 of which were completely invisible. Now the enemy they couldn't fight directly at all. Some bites carried plague or fever. The water you couldn't live without could empty your body with sickness until you died of thirst beside a full water skin. And worse still were the worms. Long parasites living in the human gut, taken in from undercooked meat and dirty water. We found them, in preserved human waste thousands of years old, packed with eggs and inside mummified bodies. The more people crowded together, the worse it got. And here's the staggering part. They fought this and sometimes won without the faintest idea that germs even existed. 3 things they did genuinely helped. The first was to move. When a camp grew too foul, they picked up and left. Not because they grasped contamination, but because bitter experience had taught them that lingering too long beside your own waste made people sick. Relocation was medicine. The second was to reach for plants. And they were often right. A remarkable number of the medicines in your cabinet today began as leaves and roots used by people who knew nothing of the chemistry inside them, only that chewing this bark eased pain, or that brewing this plant brought a fever down. Thousands of years of trial and error, quietly banking real cures. The third still amazes me. They packed wounds with honey, and honey genuinely kills bacteria. It draws the water straight out of the microbes, and it's mildly acidic, which is exactly why a sealed jar of it can sit for 1,000 years and never spoil. The oldest medical texts we have already described smearing it onto a wound. With no theory at all, they had stumbled onto a real antibiotic. But their most powerful weapon wasn't a tool or a plant. It was each other. Because they couldn't see what was killing them, every ancient culture reached for an explanation. Spirits, curses, bad air, an angry god. It's easy to smirk at that. Don't. That was the human mind refusing to sit still in the dark, doing the only thing it could against an enemy it couldn't see, forcing the terror to make sense, so that it might be fought at all. And while they fought it, they carried each other. We know this because the bones say so. We find ancient skeletons with catastrophic injuries, shattered legs, lost limbs, illnesses that would leave a person helpless for months, that then healed. You do not heal from that alone. Someone carried them, fed them, brought them water, kept the predators off, and sat with them through the nights. In a world quietly trying to kill them from every direction, the thing humans did about it, over and over, was refuse to let each other die alone. So, what did ancient humans do about rats, bugs, and disease? Here's the part that should stop you. For almost the entire human story, sickness had no cause you could point to. It came from nowhere, took who it wanted, and left no reason behind. So people filled that silence with the only answers a mind can reach for when it can't see the enemy. Anger from the gods, a curse, an imbalance, bad air. Not because they were foolish, but because something has to be to blame. And an invisible living thing you have no way of knowing exists was not an answer available to anyone on Earth. Compare that to your own life for a second. You drink water without a thought. You eat food no rat has ever touched. When you get sick, you almost always know exactly why, and you almost always get better. The distance between their world and yours isn't a bit of extra comfort. It's the single greatest gap in the entire human story, and you were born on the far side of it. They didn't win that war. They couldn't. They just refused to lose it, holding the line, generation after generation, against something they never even got to see. And they held it long enough to hand it to the people who finally would. That's what they did about it. They survived an enemy they didn't understand, so that one day someone could.